Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's a chess show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Starr, and I have today a great guest, Professor Ken Regan. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Hello, yes, thank you very much for having me on. Welcome to our holiday bedecked home.
Hmm.
For this one, I've just finished a very busy term, so technically haven't posted my grades yet. There's still some makeup work, but
Yeah, it's great to see you in home because normally we see you in the auditorium with a huge board where some flying some objects which, except you, probably nobody can fully understand.
yes,
But
that was just after I came from teaching a lab class. So
yeah, yeah. Okay, it's great to have you home. And the chess life is still going strong. We just witnessed the very strong Grandmaster tournament finish with Grandmaster Gukesh
right.
to first prize. And that makes him eligible for the candidates tournament.
Now, is he eligible on the basis of the FIDE circuit or for rating? Is which one is he going for there?
I think rating, and I think that there are some rating points will be awarded during the Rapid and Blitz Championship, which is coming in a few days.
That also mystifies me because I thought only the classical rating was at issue.
That's
Uh,
exactly what I don't understand how it all works. And this is the rules are so vague, they're changing, and it's quite inconsistent. And I think I disagree with that because a lot of grandmasters have their calendar for months ahead, and now they have to scramble to make some different adjustments
well,
based on some rumors, essentially.
part of the scrambling, of course, makes it exciting, and perhaps that element of it was on purpose.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
and it also, let's put it this way, let's look at one very big bright side. You have all the interest on this, and the interest is focused on three different continents. You've got Gukesh and Erigaisi also playing in Chennai, India. And let me point out, nobody's mentioned this. According to what I see, this is the first 2,700 plus classical tournament ever held in India. There have been
Absolutely.
Tata, Rapid, and Blitz category 20, but this is or 21, 20, I think. But this is category 19, classical chess, first ever in India. You have people playing in Sitges, Spain. Lenier withdrew. And you have Ali Riza Firuzja right now, as we speak, in an arranged series of matches in France. And the other people involved, one of the other person involved is Wesley So, playing in the United States. So um, now I'm showing the screen of the website 2700chess.com, which maintains live ratings. I don't know how close they are relative to the official calculations um, by FIDE. But here we see Feruzja is less than a point behind Wesley So. And there's no question they're going after the rating one. And
Absolutely.
Lenier Dominguez Perez was in that race, but dropped out after he drew against players who are strongly underrated because of the pandemic lag phenomenon that I've often talked about. Eric IEC, maybe not directly in the rating race. Well, he could gain 20 points, I guess, if he's gained 11 last result there. And Gukesh further down. But I think that there's also a FIDE circuit place, where Anish Giri has been in the driver's seat for that. And I don't know if that is in any danger.
Well, according to, I just checked recently with chess.com uh,
Mhm.
information, and what they're saying is that Gukesh wins title on tiebreak, overtakes Giri in candidates race. That's
So in the circuit race, then, yes.
that's according to chess.com, right? And we have no
Uh-huh.
reason not to believe them. So there is an incredible fight for these candidates, and nobody understands the rules, and nobody knows what exactly they're fighting. But you're right; I agree with you. that it makes it very exciting.
Yeah.
Indeed.
I do draw a distinction in kind between the Chennai tournament, as said, first ever Category 19. Vish Vanalan Anand played the first move, registered tournament on the FIDE circuit, and the matches being played in France, which are
Mhm.
purely for rating, not part of the FIDE circuit, and were arranged very last minute and without the aplomb of a round robin tournament where you get other players to play.
So, how do you think reliable are these matches to produce objective
Well,
results?
yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm onto that as well. So, I mean, they're
Mhm.
being played now, so it's too early. Even with my ability to manipulate wormholes and quantum circuits, according to some people, I cannot get the results of today's games to you at this moment. Um,
Okay,
for
okay,
time travel. But anyway, but
right.
Levan Aronian traveled to Chennai. You had Predka from Europe as well, and Elyanov from Ukraine, and Magsudlu from Iran. So and Sanan Shugarov. So there were three Indians and five foreign players. Purely bona fide international tournament in Chennai.
So, I think that these five foreign players probably had quite healthy financial conditions to travel that much. I noticed that Aranyan drew all his games,
Mm,
and I don't think that he had any incentives rather than financial
yeah, you're
to
right about that.
this
Yeah,
tournament, right?
right.
So this is why I remember I mentioned in some other programs, and I still do believe that the previous system of two or maybe even three interzonal tournaments
Hmm.
was, it's not without faults, right? But I think it's probably superior to anything else
Yeah.
what we've seen
You got
lately.
to give it credit for being what people came up with first in a less turbulent or and fast-paced times, before internet. Uh, so
Right.
when the system was devised even before jet planes were completely legion. Um, so
Yeah,
the so
you're
it,
right.
it's a venerable system. Ought to have been paid its prompts, and it lasted into the 1980s. Um, but at any rate, um, yeah, I don't really take part in those deliberations. I
Hmm.
just check the games, and in fact, I'm uploading Chennai's play today right now.
There are some interesting games. Maybe you can select one to show.
Yeah, well, yes, I should. I mean, there were two one games today, but let's take one of Gukesh's one games.
Of course, yes.
So okay, so let me just oops, um, copy this up, and then I'll be ready. And of course, there have been other news as well. There was the release of the FIDE report on the Neiman case, and I am about to post an article on the Gödel's Lost Letter blog that is going to be making uh, a larger point about streaks. I quote my results on the um, on the um, on the Nakamura streak that I gave earlier this month on this show. But I have a lot more to say about the notion of streakiness.
Okay.
So that's what I will emphasize. But okay, let me go to the videotape, so to speak, and let's pick out. So an interesting win by Black against Shugarov in a fairly tactical position. So
Hmm.
I'll share my screen.
Very interesting.
Yep. Okay. This one I'll share just the tab because I have a lot going
Okay.
on in this computer. Here we go. Okay. So this is the fifth round, key round when the players are jockeying for position. Gukesh was able to win the tournament with two draws after winning this game with Black. You can also see a comment on a news item just today that the Chess 24 website, which I've been using, will close. Uh, second time that a website that I used habitually is closing. Previously, Chess Bomb, uh, um, but anyway, um, chess.com bought the parent of Chess 24 a year plus ago. So I guess to say I was
Understand.
glad it stayed open for as long as it did. But they'll be consolidating it. There's some very technical format issues that I'm having with chess.com, including about one player Vignesh at Sunway Sitkus, where if I click on this, Chess 24 includes his rating and FIDE ID, but the
Yeah.
chess.com file does not. And that throws off my calculations. And in fact, I just discovered 2 days ago, that that this sort of phenomenon is why my average on Title Tuesday has gone askew from 50.0 to under 49.5. In other
Terrible.
words, the records of all the players are not as complete as they are when Mark Crowther puts together the week in chess. And Mark Crowther has primarily used Chess 24. So I'll have to have some dialogue about that because a half point is enough to be noticeable for throwing off my results because some players' records aren't retrieved the same way I've been accustomed to. But overall, there are other changes made by chess.com, maybe in response to things I said that I've been happy with. So um, hopefully more of the same. Okay, so we play this Tabia of the call it the anti-everything opening, anti-Marshall, anti-Berlin, or Gioco Piano opening. And so Shugarov expands on the queen side, but black has an ace in the hole lurking on a7, the Bobby Fischer bishop, um, uh, pressuring a weak pawn at f2. But white, for one thing, is trying to bury the bishop on the queen side. However, black chooses this moment to become active. And usually, when black is able to play d5 in a position like this, black has at least equality. Okay, engine maybe doesn't quite agree, but this certainly is not a chronic advantage for white. Okay, so Shugarov just builds. Okay, uh, and then decides to take a pawn. Okay, so I might have continued building with bishop b2 and rook d1. In fact, let's go see what the computer was saying here. Yeah, in fact, wanted to build with bishop b1 or bishop e3 to oppose the bishop. Those were all options. But as the third option, the computer does say you can go ahead and grab material, so white does that. So now black, however, is able to gain some activity. So the question is white overextended? White has two minor pieces on the back row. It usually doesn't happen. But white has an extra pawn for the troubles, and white isn't in any immediate danger just yet. There's a question of the playability of this kind of position, completely apart from the computer moves. And one of the deeper things in my analysis, it's already reflected implicitly by my model, is how to recognize cases like this with what you're seeing on the screen, where the engine's value is plus 0.19 to white, a meaningless plus overall. It's correctly classified as equal by the engine, by the website. But alternatives to this move are subtly worse. They're not disastrously worse. They're not like a blunder if you play a different move, but it's more than a little incremental slip. A difference of 10 centipoints even could just be error, experimental error in the chess program's evaluation. But 20 centipoints is where you say probably not. So the engine is saying to keep this slight plus I'm giving you, you have decided to come forward with your queen and to e4, not f5, and not develop your other pieces. So, okay, white finds the move, I guess is a natural move. Good. Let's see what white does next. White finds another good move. And well, you did have to guard that pawn. So last move, black couldn't take this pawn because then queen b7 would have been very messy. Whereas the black knight on c3 isn't actually attacking anything. So black blocks that threat and white guards the pawn. Interesting enough, putting the bishop here, not putting it on b2. I might have been very tempted to play bishop b2, and it would have been marginally worse. Okay. So now queen g4, white still keeping the little edge, and white correctly, according to the computer, it goes on the attack, and black counterattacks. Also the best move according to the computer. Things are now getting very tactical. One obvious point is that if white takes the pawn, then black plays rook f8 and the weakness of f2 with this dragon bishop, not dragon bishop, but Fisher bishop on a7 um, coming into play. All right, so white has to duck, and black now recoups a pawn. And actually, the way white ducked was not the right way. Again, queen f3 looks completely natural to me, but queen e2, and in fact, queen e2 just looks like a bad move. You're allowing your queen to be pile drived by rook takes e5, but well, the exchanges will, well, yeah, so black's knight would fall after the exchanges. Still, putting white's queen in the path of black's rook doesn't look like the thing to do, but the queen is apparently needed on that square for a reason that's very subtle. f3 gives away white's advantage according to the computer. Now black recovers the pawn, and this was clearly white's idea, but now black says, what's your follow-up? And the computer says white doesn't have one. So anyway, okay, so knight g3 attacking stuff. Black, once again, different motif. Instead of on a file, now on a diagonal. Probing the weakness on f2, which prevents white from capturing on f5 with the knight, because then that would allow the queen to come there. Okay, so white now tries to do something about that bishop. Well, black just takes. What has white done? White has pinned black's rook to the king. Okay, now we oppose the bishop this way. Okay, we got rid of the bishop, yay, but we've walked into f4. And white thought that this would be an adequate reply, pinning the pawn to the queen, but black saw further than white did. Okay, so there, and this is simply, they could also play queen g5, but black sees the knight on d5. Look at that powerful knight. It locks the pawn, it blocks the pin, it exposes b7, but who cares about b7? We're going to go headhunting on the king side. So so white took on b7, but instantly now queen g5, the move black could have played first. And now white's knight is definitely under attack, and now white's king is definitely under attack. And now white's rook and this pawn, and now it's very clear that white's position is falling apart. And after the natural rookie move, one move, now it definitely is. I would say here that there's an echo of the bishop on a7, because g3 is still a weak square. Okay, white tries to defend it. Now white has three pieces defending g3, but black is able to come through anyway. The computer says black would have been even better to put more pressure on the f file or tuck the king, but there's nothing wrong with this move. Okay, and computer says, yeah, that's right. Actually, what the computer says is, I think white could possibly climb back into the game, but after you take with the knight, that's not the case anymore. And so just too many leaks in this position. So white's knight is pinned, can't do anything, and black is going to exploit the pinned knight two more times. Rook there, and then queen down there, checkmate, supported by the rook. So white at least tries to cover the h5 square, since it's not covering the h5 square. Unpinning the knight gives black a free exchange, and then black just decides to consolidate. And after a few more moves, white gave up. So, very nice reactive game by Gukesh.
Mhm. but a strange game in some ways that okay, it was a opening equal position. White somehow just all of a sudden got distracted himself.
Yeah,
Black did very little to win the game, except that White completely gave it up at some point. I
yeah.
don't understand what's really happening. Who was the white player?
The white
Sigur.
son of
Oh,
Shugarov.
okay. So you can understand the difference in motivation of Sigurov and Gugesh.
Yeah, maybe so. But I want to say something ingrained about the chess opening. Okay, so
Hmm.
the
Okay.
openings of our youth, the Rui Lopez especially, were characterized by the standpoint that White was prosecuting a latent advantage. Okay, the advantage we call Spanish torture. You know, a better center, better activity. Black eventually pushed back, and Black clearly struggling to prevent White from establishing the Spanish torture. So that was the clear theme of play in the Rui Lopez. In this opening, it's the White doesn't really have a claim on the rights to some motif that will confer the advantage. Um, so you might think that White could claim the ability to expand in the center early with the pawns like this, but that's
Uh,
not true. Black is able to counteract that fairly easily. You might think that White's claim is to be able to expand on the queen side, but very often Black has the choice of opposing that right away or laying back. This is whether which of these two moves to play is often a major theme. And also, it's less consequential than queenside play in the King's Indian defense or the Queen's Gambit declined, for instance. So, so the game is really characterized by maneuvering in which Black is really on equal footing with White. And as we saw in this game, it was Black who was able to play the D5 break first.
Again, I'd like to ask you a question. If you remember the games, indeed, the Spanish torture, how it was done by, it was performed by Fischer, Spassky,
Mhm.
Karpov, um, Kasparov, probably a couple more players.
Right.
I don't really see. I'm following Real Pass, and I never seen anybody demonstrating that the White's plan of attack, demonstrated by these giants, is refuted. They're all now playing some anti-martial, anti, as you say, anything stuff, but they don't get any advantage out of the opening. They just have a maximum. They get even position. That's
You
all.
mean white players facing
White
anti-martial laws?
players.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, I'm talking about the the classic Spanish torture because that game, that opening was also characterized by maneuvering. You would often go 25 moves without any pawn exchanges,
It's true,
and the maneuvering in this opening for the most
but
part.
White was able to build in most of these examples that I mentioned. White was able to build considerable advantage around move 25, maybe 30.
Right.
But they could have. I remember Karpov's game when he opened a5, put bishop on a7, doubled his rooks against Unziker, I think.
Right.
So that's a quite famous game. Fischer has numerous games, including championship match with Spassky. He had fantastic relay game. I think it was number 10, if I'm not mistaken. And there are several others. And nobody refuted that this plan is no longer good for White, and Black has numerous defenses and so on. Somehow, White is getting either lazy or scared to allow martial attack, but even martial attack, at the best, Black can claim equality, and still you have to be very precise. And in some cases, the most famous is match Leka against Kramnik, when Leka prepared very strong reaction to White's plan and won very beautiful game in a martial attack with
Mhm.
Black. So, but these games are so unimpressive. So the most case, see, Black even doesn't have to rely on Berlin to make a draw. They can play, as you see in this game, classical relay pass and still doing just fine. That's a little bit disappointing stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
In this case, I even don't understand why White continues to play e4. I think d4 probably would offer more chances.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe we'll see a return to D4. Definitely the
I
past
mean,
5 years, the emphasis have been on E4, at least what I read from Twitter.
yes,
So,
correct.
uh,
Yes, it is.
but oh yes, I know that's now I'm remembering the name of a player. Okay, so um, okay, so let me see if I can come up with this here. Robert James Fisher versus Leonid Stein. Let me see if this is the tournament that I remember, the game that I remember. Oh, yes, it is. Okay, so um, so yeah, this is a game that made a very strong impression on me as a child. I don't know. Do I have time to show it? Interested
Yes,
to see a
please.
Fisher Rui Lopez, a classic.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. Okay, so let me share this again. Um, so better than talking about cheating. Okay, so this is Bobby Fischer versus the late great lamented Leonid Stein, because he himself had a lot of brilliance.
Is that
At the
from Sus Interzonal?
Deuce Interzonal 1967. That's
I
right.
remember that game.
This is
Yes.
on chessgames.com. So Fischer is white in the classical Morphy Rui Lopez. Okay. Well, black plays the move order with bishop e7, which isn't even threatening the marshal. So, um, so there we go. White plays h3 to prevent black's bishop from coming out. It's definitely a slow buildup. This is not the Briar, which black's plays the knight to a5, and the benefit of the move is it shoos away white's bishop. The downside of the move is that the knight is often offside, and besides
Is that
white bishop,
so-called Chigorin system, right?
I guess so. Yes, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so black's knight comes into play uh, more immediately and actually reroutes itself to b6. Still a little offside, but definitely better than a5, at the cost of several tempi. And as I said, White's birthright in this position is to have the center, to be able to maneuver this knight to control the other squares and not be disturbed by any strong black counterplay.
Can you
So,
already see how superior is this White's play to the game that we just seen before?
yeah, well, but Leonid Stein didn't know to play the Berlin, so or and also it was shortly afterward, in Arkhangelsk and other places that Black and the Ruli Lopez discovered that Bishop C5 was a viable place. You would
Yes.
sometimes lose one or even two pawns, but you get an end game where you have enough activity to recover them. So if White goes for the pawns, White usually tries to keep the tension, and we get a different kind of game. Now,
It seems
Black
to me
is.
that Fischer was never scared to have a position with extra pawn. I
Hmm,
think Fischer never stayed away from it, this
yeah, I
opportunity.
guess so. Even the bishop h takes h2 move against Spassky. Well, he
Uh,
was scared against that. Now, the thing is, Black could have played the Briar by just going knight b8 to d7. Instead, Black played knight a5, c4, b6, d7. On the other hand, it's not clear that White's b3 was an achievement. So maybe Black has lost only one tempo this way. And White, in fact, decides to play b4, which is restraining what Black will be able to do. And now we finally have an exchange. And I have to say, I would ordinarily not have made that exchange, except for calculating the fact that by taking away the c3 pawn, now you can attack and take over the b4 square. White can't support the b4 pawn by a3 because of the pin of the rooks on the a file. So White captures, and usually capturing is a concession because now White has isolated pawn on a2, whereas Black's pawns are together. And in fact, here they come. But here White comes as well. This is what made it uh, so exciting to see. White now has an advantage of pawns on the king side, black a duo with the passed pawn on the queen side. So black is able to come to a center square, but e6 and f7 are once again sensitive in this position. And we'll see that white's bishop on c2, even though it's forced back to b1, eventually lives a brilliant life. Okay, so black recaptures, and then comes what to me was the most pretty tableau. So white now starts attacking black's weak points. Black comes and captures on e4 and then blocks. Okay. But now white able to go over to the attack again. And I have to say, this looks very rickety for black. But as everything needs to be calculated, and white does have to take the pedal off the gas a little bit because black has a pin and there's no immediate way to crash through. I'd look at G4 for a long time, but then maybe not believe it. So Fisher thought discretion was better, gets the queen out of the pin, and now comes black's knight to C4. I love this arrangement of knights and pawns as a 10-year-old kid when I played over this game. And now we bring the knight back. Okay, now we have a threat. We're threatening bishop takes G6, so black blocks it by bringing up the king. Now we have a threat coming in this way, but black can parry that as well. The effect of parrying it, though, is to reduce the coverage of f7. And now it is a factor that black's rook on a5 is not guarding one of these two ranks. Okay, so now Fisher is able to strike at the weak point on f7. And black blocks this, again, trying to block white's ferocious bishop on b1 as well, but here it comes. You were trying to block me? No, you didn't block me. And so this is something I think that doesn't need calculation. It's what Fisher or Lasker, someone said, is as natural as a baby's smile. Okay, so black cannot, in fact, capture this bishop. White's pieces will just come in too quickly. So instead, Liechtenstein tries to say, I'll blunt the attack at the cost of a pawn by getting rid of the queens, okay, and does so like this. And now I can hope to recover the pawn or at least get enough activity with my free pawns on the queen side in order to counterattack what white is doing.
It's
But
a
now,
great illustration. This position is a great illustration about two bishops advantage.
exactly as I was about to say, yes,
You
the other thing white
really,
has
really see it.
is two bishops, and black's knights are frankly in the way of his pawns. So, okay, so black actually decides on a defensive move, getting in the way of white's e-pawn. Okay, and now white is able to still bring a lot of attacking power against black's position, even at what looks like the cost of this pawn. But here white comes. Now the problem is that black's rook on e6 cannot stay unopposed on the e file, and if it moves off the e file, then white has crossfire on e7. Okay, so that's exactly what happens. So white's crossfire at e7 is going to outweigh black's capture of the bishop on f4. Okay, well, actually, black's capture of the bishop on f4 just loses the rook. But there was nothing better that black had to do. Because there's no way to guard e7. If you go king f8, the knight forks the king and rook that way. Okay, and none of black's knights are too far away to make a difference. This knight is raked by white's bishop on f3, so it cannot come to the aid of black's position. So in fact, this was definitely black's least evil. But now down a pawn, and we just play some more moves down an exchange. Now black's pawns are weak and uncoverable. So this gets to be a mopping up stage. Okay, white's knight's still able to come in and be happy. Now we capture that pawn, and white's a4 pawn even is a little useful at the very end. It's guarded by the rook on e4. So white is just able to come forward. Black could have really resigned 10 moves ago, down a pawn in the exchange. But this is
Against Fischer.
against Fischer. Yeah, this is when Stein decided to give up. So a beautiful game, showing all the results, the expansion. Okay, that some would consider White's birthright, and Black's counterattack on the queen side was too little, too late. Um, so, can White find a way to build that up in the Gioco piano-like positions that we're seeing now? The answer, as shown by Gukesh, is apparently not. So,
Ken, I think we should probably more often show the older games. You know why? I think that that's something what was said about, I think, Genos Sonka in his book or essay about Tal. He wrote that you can, if you take games of Ruben Fine, you can learn a lot from his games, but you don't necessarily enjoy his games. In case of Tal's game, there is very little you can learn. You can enjoy tremendously his games,
yes,
but there is very little you can enjoy. And why? Because you cannot learn something what the nature didn't give it to you.
yeah,
Tal's talent, his vision, if you don't have it, how you can learn it?
right.
So you can just enjoy his games, but
Mhm.
not try to learn anything from it, because you just most likely, most of us just don't
But
have.
but you're saying that Fisher you can learn from.
Yeah, I think Fisher is one that you can actually learn a lot,
Mhm.
and especially his book, My 60 Memorable Games.
Mhm.
Yeah, indeed, you can learn a lot. And I know in Soviet Union, that was a book that people were dying to get one. I still have a Russian translation of this
Mhm.
book, and people were ready to pay any money, it doesn't matter how much, just to get this book, because
Really?
this is probably one of the best books ever written, and it's such a deep, not only understanding of positions, but ability to explain the
In
nature.
relatively few words. Okay.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not like Kasparov
yeah.
when he annotates, but yeah.
And
So,
also, yeah, you can learn actually from Kasparov, my great predecessors. His writings about Fischer, incredible. I'll tell you what, Fischer, Karpov is incredible, Korchnoi is great,
mhm.
and I love that much Capablanca Lohin, which he brings two sides of the match. One when he writes about Capablanca, and another one when he writes about Lohin. The same match, the same games, and he's completely differently portrays them. And what was interesting, what I was not aware of, when the score was +4 for Alokin and +3 um, for Capablanca. So Alokin had one game lead.
Mhm.
But apparently, if the score would be 5-5, so the match would be drawn. So
Mhm.
essentially, Capablanca needed to win at that point two games, and so was Alokin to win the match.
Mhm.
So the chances were equal. Believe it or not, with the score 4-3 in Alokin's favor, it was mathematically even match.
Hmm. Oh, wow.
I was not aware of that, but
I was not aware of that either. Yeah.
yeah, I read it in Kasparov's book. Anyway, Ken, it was a fantastic program today. Thank you so
Sure.
much.
Sure
And
thing. Yep.
I think next week probably we will take a break. We'll do one of the
Yeah. Yeah.
older.
I'll be on holiday travel. But
That's right. But the following week, after New Year's,
so we get to that, and
we'll
look
resume.
look for my post on the Gödel's Lost Letter blog about possible cheating at Wordle.
Where should I get it?
Oh, I haven't posted it yet. I'll send
Ah,
you when I write. I haven't finished it. So
please send it.
yeah.
I
Okay.
always enjoy everything.
It's the beginning of my responses to Kramnik. I have not had time this busy month to make a full response yet.
Excellent. Looking
Okay.
forward so much. Have a great
Okay.
holidays,
All
and
right.
I see you in the next program whenever we
Thank
will
you.
have
Okay.
it. And all the best to you.
Thank you.
Bye
Yep.
bye.
All right.